So let's talk about the statistical primer. If you talk about the statistical primer, natin itawag na practice. How do we do the statistics DI? What will be the first thing that you need to do? So of course, now you have to do some reading and critiquing published research. That is, most of the study mga good, especially those who have conducted it already. Nasa yung mga statistics na, di ba, most of the RRL nga atong kaka-search classes, na siya own niya nga, kanang na ay mga provided statistical studies dito. Nabantay mo na? Confirm if yes?
Yes, sir.
No? So, especially yung RRL, naka-notice mo na nga yung mga percentages nito appear. So, those are the published research already that has this statistics na mga provided nga mga statistics na. But what will you do once you have that kind of itang mga studies already? You have to make sure that it's kanang you have to verify that study kung legit ba yun siya, no? And you know, numbers don't lie. Kung na-adjud na siya pasabot na the article itself is really it's really good because the number says that the outcome sa iyahang study or that ang article is really good. Kasi examining the outcomes of an actual practice by analyzing the data collected in a clinical site or in an actual site. Okay? Why do you do clinical studies? Diba? Clinic na term is not totally about clinic naman, diba? Clinic means you have to check, diba? So, why do we need to examine the outcome of the actual practice through analyzing the data? Okay? So, isira ato ang pandana, isira ato ang kanang tubagdana. If you don't examine the outcome ng good, what will happen to your what will happen to your research? What will happen to the result of your statistic if you don't examine the outcome? What will happen? What do you think will happen kaha? If you don't examine the outcome based from the analyzed data? Anyone?
Misleading na siya.
Ha?
Misleading ng info.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Philip. Naman siyang misleading, no? Misleading siya because wala tayo, for example, no, dili makita ang alignment sa imuhang data dito sa imuhang gi-publish ng mga statement from the chapter 1 to 3, for example. And then you have the chapter 2 that has a very strong foundation. If you don't examine the outcome first about the current studies or the let's say those past studies na before sa inyo there will be a misleading information nga pwede ma-establish diha sa inyong paper. So you have to examine everything first. And then next is developing administrative reports with support data. Support data means those numbers involved when you have this when you research references and resources. Okay? Please do not forget to write your own statement as well. Try to be polite. Diba? Be polite. Just add information that you think necessary for the statement to become realistic and mabutang pud siya nga napod mo say kana nga statement, napod mo own insight. And another is analyzing the research done. Kana. The basic function of the copy pasting is not really the copy pasting itself. Diba? You have to analyze the research that was established before sa inyo and do not copy the answer. Instead, try to understand why ngano sa among study is putang lugar no, the RRL or ang yung reference kung gigamit sa inyong study is quite the same and quite related dito sa inyong RRL. And you have to make sure that the percentages or the data result on that article is closely related sa inyo If it's not, try to do more examine. Diba? Examine more the basis. Because kung dili siya closely related, kung dili mo siya mo close ito sa before ng mga result sa inyong karon inyong istadihan kamulo, there might be something wrong, no? So, inya na. Another is demonstrating a problem or need and conducting a study. That's the point of the research, diba? You have to demonstrate a problem for you to find the concrete answer. Okay, to find the concrete answer, you have to conduct some study. To conduct the study, you need to do some thorough reading. And asa na siya mulit ang thorough reading? Of course, no, this is where the statistics will come. Because the statistic here will verify your claims. No? If you will say that this our problem really is closely related to what is happening right now, or mga recent na mga happenings that needs answers, needs solutions, then statistics the better is one of the best answers that you can get. So what are the critically appraising statistics? First is you have to identify the statistical procedures used. Actually, you have your di ba, statistical analysis, you have your research procedure, you also have your data gathering, and you also have your research design and instrument. Those are the type of procedures that you need to observe every time you do the statistics. Because dili ka makakuha og result unless those methods were involved. Next, determine whether statistics used were appropriate or not. There are times that you'll be favored to change the statistics that you are using. For example, the data or the statistical analysis that you are using is not appropriate to your study, especially if you have descriptive qualitative type of research, and most of the data that will be collected is siya. Medyo gagamit na siya ng mga basic no ng mga formula. But if you're talking about experimental, inferential, and mga hypothetical and quantitative type of analysis, you'll be using a statistics that is appropriate to those one. Mga ANOVA, di ba, mga Slovens na ginagamit ninyo with the use of the marginal errors and everything. Di ba? Every statistics will be involved unless it is necessary. Another is evaluate researchers' interpretation of statistics. If you are not professional enough, if you don't have trust in yourself to interpret the data coming from the result of the kind of statistics that you're using, try to seek some advice from the expert. Sometimes good when you reach college, no, puhon, most of I think lang no, you'll be most of you have are accepted na sa mga universities and colleges na inyong gusto. Sa inyong research, thesis, or third papers kung tawag na ninyo, you'll be needing the help of the expert. Or sometimes, if great statistics is needed for your research, you'll be paying for it. Diba? Naibayad na akas. Actually, gabayran ang most of the studies gabayran na. So, muna gabayaran man because you have to buy that application just to make sure that the data that you will get is really sufficient or kanang valid. So, may ang incident na may tabo. So, what will be the stages in the data analysis? So, first is prepare the data for analysis. Data coming from the results, no? So, yung statistics, because you will not analyze a data unless no statistical procedure happened. So you need to make sure that nag-agi siya sa sakto nga method. Another is describe the sample. I think you have an idea of how to describe the sample because according sa iyong research design, you're actually using most of the samples based from the questionnaires, di ba? And some questionnaire also needs needs to be appropriate for the conduct of the study. So we have to describe what kind of sample are you going to use, and then that's reliability of measurement methods. Okay, you'll be correct sa inyong kanang methods na gamiton, pero sometimes the test will be more reliable if you'll be using a right method. So if the method is quite incorrect and misleading, then you'll be advised to change that one. Especially if If you think no that the statistic uh, the equation that you're using to validate the result is quite kind of itong weak siya, your advice as well to try to extend more the equation. So sa mga type of advices na ginahatag sa mga expert, try to kind of itong use another style, use another methods just to make your kanang statistical method kanang appropriate for your data. Because pasin man good, tsada laging equation, but once you try to defend that one, dili na rin siya ninyo ma-defend because weak na kayo ang iyang foundation. Another is conduct exploratory analysis. Kana, do not just focus on one class, one method. Okay? Do not focus on one method only. Remember, the data that you will get will not only limit the whole process. It should not limit the whole process. Diba? Because that's the point of having that's the point of conducting or include that's the point of what you call this one involving statistics at our study. Okay, because you wanted not only on this specific data, but you wanted also to have more data coming from the different aspect. So you have to make sure that you're conducting another type of data analysis also. Okay? Mga sa inyo bitang research, di ba? Kabantay mo nga, you're not only using one measurement, you're actually using two or three, okay, to verify your result. Another is conduct a confirmatory analysis guided by hypothesis, questions, or objectives. And obviously, no, naana sa inyong karon, nasa inyong papers karon, you have your own hypothesis, you have your research questions, and you also have the objectives of the study. But the question is, will it lead you to the analysis that you're looking for? Okay, will it give you a right answer based from the based from the confirmatory analysis that you're doing? Because if it's not, then try to do some kind of remedy. Okay, change the concept or change some kind of style that you're using. Because if the hypothesis that you have do not really align to the expected result that you needed, then try to change try to change that specific hypothesis and make sure that it will become aligned to the expected result that you're looking. Another also is to conduct a post-hoc analysis. Okay? What you need to conduct a post-hoc analysis? You need to do this one because you need again to verify the result. Sometimes we are kind of deceived by our own hypothetical results. Okay? Because if our hypothetical result is positive, it's the percentage of the positive outcome is really observed. Sometimes good, we thought that our answer at the end of the research is correct na jud, which is the answer is not. Diba? Dili siya nga 100% correct because the evidence is there, but how about the process? Is it strong? Is it gonna uh, what do you call this one? Is it really gonna explain the whole process of your study? Para siya mga kwan. That's why you have to do some post-hoc analysis. Okay. Now, we have two major statistics. We are actually using two major statistics. We have the descriptive and inferential. So how do we differ descriptive to inferential? If you talk about descriptive statistics in the class, you're actually describing and summarizing the sample of the variables. It is also referred as a summary statistics. This is what I meant when it comes to looking for the variables, especially in research. If you have many variables on it, if you have many sample variables, you will be having a hard time to at least describe and summarize what is inside of those variables and how those variables will help you. Okay? Imagine if your variables imong variables is tulo ka buok. Okay? Sa imong conceptual framework, you have 3 variables. Now, if you will be summarizing the 3, looking for the if you are looking for an answer, or for example, no, on the dependent and dependent variables, it's quite hard for you to describe. How do you describe three variables, di ay? Remember, our variables here is the basis of our questionnaire. It's also the basis of our study, because we're focusing on those variables. If we fail to focus on those variables, it is also a failure po sa outcomes of the study. So you have to make sure that if you're doing the descriptive statistics, you are actually describing the whole process of your research. You do not stick only, again, you should not limit you should not limit your your analysis on one specific na nga na kanang measuring method for statistics. No, it shouldn't be like that, di ba? It should be something nga kanang exploratory. It should be something nga kanang daghan siya, pero it will lead you to one specific answer lang. Okay? Because, you know, daghan mo kita ipambutan mo sa itong research class, especially daghan kita result ipambutan. No? Pag mag-defend na dayon ta, na, magnga na rin ta, because di ba, asa ka lang nakuha na siya nga answer. Sa table number 1.3, di ini siya nakuha. But, kung sa table 1.3 na siya niyo nakuha, yun siya na pagkuha na siya. Yung bita na mag-sequence, sir. Yan ang yan history. Then, how did you come up with that answer using that sequence? How did you end up getting that answer using that statistic? So, defend. But, what if you'll be describing, no, the context of the result? Oh, so, wala na. Okay? Nag-base na mo sa number. What if ang number dagan pwede pa usay mag-present ang number lang class based sa atong result, dagan ka pwede pangutana dana. Especially kung atong basis bitaw is very weak. Atong foundation is weak to explain. So medyo dili na to makuha jud ang iyahang point sa ato ang sa atong study. But I know that you will answer, sir, mo nasa amo ang hypothesis. So we have to make sure that makuha na mo jud ang result because wala sa amo ang hypothesis. So make sure that if you have this hypothesis, you are also describing it right. Okay? You are not just adding flowery words and then pag ipa-explain na katong mga flowery words, bagang na dayon mo. Di ay kinakuha na dayon sa internet, copy paste na di ay. Yan na. Sorry. For the inferential statistics dayon, we are talking about infer or address the objective question on the hypothesis. Inferential statistics is it is more dependable on the hypothesis, no? Because you are trying to relate, you are trying to relate the result supposedly to the hypothesis. It's the same thing when you do the descriptive, but the descriptive more siya on the explanatory aspect, while the inferential more siya on the specific aspect, because you are only looking for one answer, one solution. Okay, as ang base dato na, of course you have your research questions na. That will be your guide, di ba? Na may objective as well, that will be your guide. If you don't have any objectives at all in your study, then stop the research. Okay, do not proceed, because ang nabantay nung gunamon sa mga research ng good ninyo is usahay dili mag-relate ang ato ang research question sa ato ang problem. O sa atong problem di siya mo-relate sa ato ang kanang statement of the problem. Tapos kung pakutanon mo sa questionnaire, hindi mo nga mo nasa mo questionnaire, sir. How about try to create your own narrative. Try to to change the concept, but make sure lang jud nga ang inyohang gipangitaon jud kinaaya pud na nga question. Diba? Adapt, diba? Mag-adapt ka. So if you're trying to do the inferential statistics on good, all of the measurement and methods that will be used should be aligned to the hypothetical answers that you needed. Okay? Now, on the descriptive statistics, if a research study collects numerical data analysis begins with the descriptive statistics. Note that it's not limited to quantitative research. Okay? Dili siya limited sa quantitative research siya. So probably, no, it is more on the qualitative research because, again, you are describing the content of the result. Or maybe the only statistical analysis conducted in a descriptive study. That could also be one of the that could also be done using descriptive statistics. No? So, sir, what about wording ang pwede ba mga wordly scenarios ang naa sa descriptive statistics? It depends because most numbers are explained by words. Okay? You do not put numbers only, especially if you have tables. You don't just put tables there sa inyong result. No. You have to at least add add some kind of explanation behind the table. So you're also describing the result. You're also describing the statistic that was used. So these are the types of the descriptive statistics. We have frequency distributions. I know that you are familiar with this. Measures of central tendency and the measures of dispersion. So also we use the two-tailedness type of statistics on the descriptive, no? So this is also one of the example for the statistics. So we have tail to tail. I think you are familiar with this, no? What is the concept of this one? So we have two tails involved here, and we have to make sure that there is a significant difference between the means, and there is a level of significance as well in the middle. So if you have the total test, it is somewhat like related uh, to the kind of the neutral part of the research. Okay? If you just want to prove that there is an actual basis between two studies, like if you have two variables involved, and you wanted to find out if the two variables is really valid, or if you wanted to support those two variables, I think two-tailedness is one of the statistics that's very helpful for that study. We also have the ungrouped frequency distribution, no? Like for example, this one. We have data in raw form. Like in the first question, we have here the we have example na type 5 ka ng kwan. We have 5 questions and then we have different respondents. And then you have to kind of itong supply each row with this kind of kwan. Like for example, sa first, isa lang ang nag-answer sa number 1. Tapos sa number 2, kada ka nag-agree. Number 3, kada nag-agree. Anana. So, ungroup frequency distribution. For the group frequency distribution, this is where you are grouping the data based from its categories. Like this is from ages 15 to 20, ages 20 to 25, ages 25 to 30. Most of you also know you use the demographic profile as part of your research, but if the point of your study, if the focus of your study is to prove and to explain the the data gathered, for example, if you wanted your problem to be explained well, why? We don't consider the ages as part of the research because but it depends, class. Sometimes man good, there are researchers that you need really the presence of the age, but it depends on what kind of study that you are conducting. If it's not necessary for your study, do not include the age, for example, as part of the study. But if it's needed, like you are actually relating the age to the comprehension and how is it adapting the new learning environment from traditional or Jurassic to the authentic or new, that can also use the age as part of the study. Ana, siguro. Also, now we have the example of the percentage distribution. This is one of the common methods that you're using. You know, the percentage distribution. Like, you're actually looking for the percentages of the different, let's say, subjects involved. Okay? Like, come on, may study about, uh, like, for example, sa Likert scale. Okay? Yan na. You're trying to do some percentage because of based from their answers from 1 to 10. You have to make sure, or let's say the number of population is also fine. It's also using this percentage distribution. It could be a help. So example is this one, no? Ano housing, textbook, clothing, food, additional. If you total this one, you need to achieve the 100% because you're totally looking for the positive distribution. You're distributing the 100% into many factors. And the most, ano siya ang pinaka, if you're providing chart, that will give us a clear definition of what is your research and statistic analysis is all about. So this is the one of the what do you call this one? Gihatag ni siya one of the cleanest type of kana showing the result, di ba? Tanawagan ninyo sa kalimpyo ang chart. Okay? Or you can use the pie chart, you can use the bar, the line graph, or what kind of um, chart you are using. You can actually use anything as long as it will clearly give us a better understanding of what is the result should all be about. Also, you're using the measures of the central tendency, like the mean median mode. This is one of the popular type of statistical analysis. So this type of measurement is where it uses also the function of the normal curve. It is the normal curve. We have the standard deviation or the z-scores. We have the mean median mode as part of the method. So normally we use the normal curve if necessary for the study. But sometimes di siya especially if the statistics that we're using is strongly descriptive. So the numerical data, although the quantitative is not limited, but remember, it is the number that tells the correct answer or that verifies the answer. For the normal curve method, it is a theoretical frequency distribution of all possible values in the population. It also gives us an understanding about the levels of significance and probability that are based on the logic of the normal curve. So number does matter when it comes to the normal curve. Okay? Why? This will be the reason. You will not get the mean median mode unless numbers are involved in the normal curve, or you have the exact numbers or populations involved in conducting the normal curve. Like for example, we have the mean. The mean is the sum of the values divided by the number of the values being summed. Okay? We have two types of calculation to when you're trying to get the mean. You have the probability and the average or the frequency distribution. So I think you are well aware about the formula of the mean. The definition itself tells us that it's all about the values of the number being summed. For the median, it is the value in exact center of ungrouped frequency distribution, and it is obtained by rank ordering the values. So normally sa ato ang statistics na probability ng subjects sa mathematics, you are taught on how to identify the median. The median, it's very simple for the median. Why? Because you're just trying to look for the middle. Like for this one, N1, N2, N3, N4, N5, the basic formula is to identify the middle. If you cannot get the middle, if we have rankings that ends with an odd number, we can actually get the median. But if you have this ranking that is observing an even numbers, like for example, how will you get the median of 10? Kung nakarank 1 to 10 siya, how will you get the median? So, katong si 5 o si 6, ato na siyang i-add tapos divide sa 4. And that will be our median. No? So, nga na lang siya sa statistics. For the mode, it is the numerical value or score that occurs with the greatest frequency. And it's actually expressed graphically. Most of the mode mong is you have to tanaw na po. Okay? Kasi may mga numbers na nga parehas ka ko, ha? Kasi may number na nga parehas gamay, ha? Kasi may mga numbers na parehas ka na. Okay lang. So you are considering this the presence of those value scores that is either observing a greatest frequency or what do you call this one, or kanabitang a lower type of frequency. So how do we identify that one? We actually express that one through graphics. So the bimodal distribution, this is the bimodal. We have the frequency on the other side and the scores on the other side. So do we consider this as a line graph? I don't think it's a line graph, no, because okay, because consider this one as a line graph because we're actually using the line, although naala siya kanang kuwan. So the bimodal distribution is also giving us if there's a rise and kanang lows of the scores prior to the frequency on the study. So how do we identify, how do we explain this bimodal distribution? Depends again on the numbers that will be involved, on of the numerical values. So sometimes if we score this from 1 to 10 and our frequency was 2 to 6, tapos mag-dependent talaga ito sa itong mga answers sa mga atong respondents, then you can do the graphing. Okay? Now, how about the measures of dispersion? Actually, we have different type, or there are different components for the measures of dispersion. We have the range, the variance, the standard deviation, the standardized scores, and the scatter plots. For the range, it only talks about the how can we obtain the result is by subtracting the lowest score from the highest score. That is the range. Okay? Usually, the range is kind of di ba na may scope and limitation pa per study class, di ba? You're actually kind of considering also the range, the population. So, for example, if dako kay ato ang kwan, if result na dako kayo tapos gamay, and you wanted also to get the range, usa day kanang kalaya, usa kalayo ang answer nako sa ako ang mga kwan sa mga sa scores, for example, no? So what will you do is that para makuha na to ang range, i-minus na to ang high score sa atong low score, and ang answer no dana will be the range that uh, on the basic aspect, we are considering that one that muna siya ang middle answer na to, muna siya ang nasa tunga. Muna siya ang kanang usa day ang laktod, pila nga laktod ay. So this is siya, I am not example lang ako ni siya, not in a political way. For example, no, mga survey like si ato ang naay leading nga presidential ball, compare nimo sa second, third, fourth, and fifth. The range of those kanang surveys will really matter. Like for example, if the second presidential ball will only get this score, like for example, no, 13 lang %, and then the highest is almost 50, or say 51. You'll be subtracting the score of the 51 to the 50. That is the range na yun. Kasi di kalay apa da iyang dapat apason. It's the same thing when you do the statistics. No? So, considering the fact that yan nakataas ang range, it means that your conclusion will be there is a greater difference between the second presidential vote to the first presidential vote. So, you will not conclude nga maapas pa sa second ang first, di ba? Considering the range. Yan na lang. The difference scores is where these are obtained by subtracting the mean from each score. Sometimes they refer to as deviation score because it indicates the extent to which a score deviates from the mean. So the difference score is where after getting the mean using an exact formula, either probability or the frequency distribution, you have to subtract the mean to the score. No? So if the score is out of 50, you only get the hypothetical score of 39. Tapos yung mean ninyo din based on the population to the question is 13. Then you have to minus 30 to 1, di ba? 13. Ilang answer na dana. That's the difference scores. For the standard deviation, I think you're familiar with this. This is the square root of the variance, just as the mean is the average value, and the standard deviation is the average difference scores. So actually, the involvement here of the average value of the mean is what we are is our basis for the standard deviation. The word itself, standard, means you are really looking for this answer. Okay, you are actually confirming it. So I will be providing quite an example for the standard deviation. But if you are knowledgeable enough to, if you have knowledge about how to get the standard deviation, much better. The standardized scores, these are the raw scores that cannot be compared and are transformed into standardized scores. Common standardized score is a Z-score and provides a way to compare scores in a similar process. The contrasting and comparing of the scores really matters because it will indicate that there is a significant difference between what you're looking for hypothetically and the actual result also that you're getting. So if you think that the scores that you have is far different from your hypothetical score, then we call it standardized scores. Okay? Because you cannot compare two scores that are too far from each other, especially if the range is too far. That's why some case studies you have to be neutral. You have to make sure that you have answers on the both on both sides. You are not imparting your supporting analysis dito lang sa usa. You're also gonna try to explain the other side. Okay? We also have the scatter plots, no? This is scatter plots common siya actually. This is where bullied siya sa mga lines, yung mga line graphs or stuff or etc. Like examples sa itong scatter plot. Okay, we have if we have a positive correlation, so you have to make sure that uh, we have the x and y, no? The scatter plots, the x and y. That's y is the positive and x is the negative, and the other side is positive and the other side is negative. If the most of the answer is in favor on the positive side, okay, from y to x, then it's positive. But if our answer is favorable to the x to y, then our answer is negative. Like this one, there's an increase and there is a decrease. Ang no correlation is that when you are having an exact number, okay, the exact number of both x and y, just like adding just like positive one and negative one together will result you to zero. There was no correlation. It means that both of them really needs to be explained. And that's another part of the analysis because you are trying to explain the both side. So neutral akong tawag na. No? Uh, you are not favoring the other side. You are trying to explain both sides. So that is the point of these counter plots. So we will discuss this probability theory next time. Any questions so far about descriptive statistics and inferential statistics? Okay. Next, wala na. So next time I will providing example of the formula. No? Most of the formula that was used by the mga experts or mga statisticians because they're actually using applications to validate data and results. Okay, sa taman niyo, not all the time, di ba? Nga pagod ta kanang naatay Dutch pang bayad sa mga experts. So that's why you are advised to use the most uh, the most easy ng mga statistical na methods para at least magets ninyo ang result o ma-identify ninyo o ma-interpret ninyo ang result na proper o sakto. So, I guess that's it for this morning. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Please, kanang kwan, ay 11:59 a.m. na ko karon maghulat sa inyong answers about sa physics yesterday na klase. So, if there's no question, that's it. See you this Friday. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, sir.
Goodbye, sir.
Bye, sir.
Bye, sir.
Bye.